All right, all right, all right. Welcome everyone to Mastermind Connect's Real Talk 100, a conversation where we keep things 100. Today we're going to be talking about when Afro Latinas, Afro Latinx meet Black Lives Matter. My name is Manny Almonte. I am one of the co-founders of Mastermind Connect, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with people that I have a lot of respect for, people that I admire, people who are very knowledgeable about this subject within their own fields. Some of us are um, immigrants. Some of us, have been born and raised here. And one of them, another fellow Mastermind Connect brother or co-founder, is actually the other side of the coin here when it comes to the conversation. His name is JD Weatherspoon, and I would like for him to tell you more about himself. Welcome, JD. You are muted right now. There you go.
Good afternoon. How's everybody today? I am, as Maddie mentioned, one third of the Mastermind Connect, founding board, born and raised, United States citizen, sort of, I guess you could say, token American friend to most of my friends growing up, because our immigration policy and the history of colonialism.
Okay, you're freezing a little bit there. I know you're on the road.
America.
There you go. You were frozen for a bit.
Yeah, no, my fault. Just we are all, I think, in the same boat with regard to the effects of ideology. And so I've had the benefit of getting to see both sides of this coin operate simultaneously growing up in a place where I think immigration policy hit hard. South Florida, the waves of Cuban, Colombian, Venezuelan immigration, and how, ironically enough, I got to pinch together how foreign policy and domestic policy somehow ended up placing us in the same boat because the same tactics were used. And then, traveling through Latin America during my own experience gave me a very unique perspective as to why the people that I met here were the way that they are. And I've ended up finding a lot more similarities than I have differences. So, I'm definitely happy to be a voice in the group of wisdom that is going to be on this call today.
All right, perfect. Welcome again, and I want to cover a lot of things with you, JD. But before we do all of that, let's introduce the next guest here. And again, this is not going to be a panel. It's not going to be a that type of conversation. We all know each other. We're going to have some fun here today. The next guest is Jay Van Sharp, another great brother hailing from Venezuela. Um, also,
What's up, man?
my brother. We were having a very important debate yesterday, and this conversation today is spawned from that. Jay called me yesterday. He wanted to talk about what happened in Uptown Manhattan recently that had Dominicans trending number one on Twitter yesterday. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you wanna tell him a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, the person on the invite is my mom. Like you, Manny, my family has been very open-minded, but very, had a very keen sense of knowledge of self. My mom and my dad. So my family hails from northern South America, the Guyana highlands and lowland. My peoples are from the Amazon basin, which means a mixture of African people, um, native Indians, the Arawaks, the Tainos, the Wadaos, and the indentured servitude that was brought in to replace the Atlantic slavery with the East Indians and Asians that came to work as migrant workers there. So from where we are in from Ciudad Guyana, which is the eastern part of Venezuela, that's where our family's from. A lot of people of colors from there. My family, um, We migrated to the States and we migrated to New York. So we were able to see a lot of the nuances of cultures, especially within people of color, which is, a shock to know how much diversity we really have within these groups. I'm an entrepreneur. Day by day, I teach business. I teach investing, and I don't like to see dissension amongst our people. So I think, man, this is what we want to talk about today. So before I get long-winded, I just want to say I'm excited to have this chat.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm very excited to have you here as well. It was a 2-hour conversation yesterday, so today we're going to make it a lot shorter.
We'll see.
Yeah, right? I mean, I hope so. I hope so. At the very least on my end. Now, the next guest is someone that is very clutch to this conversation, especially coming in as the next person, because most of the stuff that Jay said, she shares with him, because Jewel is Jay's sister, and she's an attorney and a freedom fighter.
I'm laughing because Jay and I have very different politics. So I think that's also going to be a very interesting part of this discussion, even though we grew up in the same household. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Jewel. Hello, everyone out there that's watching. I think this is an important conversation, not just for me as a first-generation American, but also for our Black American brothers and sisters who have paved the way for people like ourselves to even be able to get onto this call and talk. Same background, same mom, same dad. I'm a lawyer by day, but activism is what got me into this game. So here we are. Perfect timing.
There you go. There you go. Welcome. Very happy to have you here as well. I've saved this last guest for last because I've known him for 20 some years by now. Good friend of mine, my brother, Mastermind Connect brother, who shares something here with me that I don't share with the rest of you. We're both Dominican, and we are Afro-Latinos. We're Black. That we share all that together. But my next guest is a Dominican brother who grew up here in the States, in Inwood, which is the area in which there was some conversations, very strong topics, feelings about what happened up there yesterday, and we'll discuss that in a minute. But his name is Eric Cáceres, and he's right there. Let him talk about himself a little bit.
Hello, everyone. And before I introduce myself, I should say I wrote it to you, Manny, on the chat. Unfortunately, I didn't catch one word of what you said. I can tell that you guys could hear him, but for some reason I could not. So I feel sorry. Sorry if I missed anything, but literally, it felt like if you were muted, but not really, because I can see everybody else can hear what you were saying. So I guess you'll catch me up.
I will.
I will. Eric, don't worry. You will probably hear at least 60% of what he said 2 or 3 times throughout this conversation.
Good.
I'm glad to get this part across.
Yeah. Well, like Manny said, my name is Eric Cáceres. I am Dominican born, both Dominican parents, obviously. Migrant to the United States back when I was 6 years old. I've grown up here ever since in the hybrid combination of Washington Heights, Inwood, Upper West Side, and the Bronx. I am now an entrepreneur. I should maybe a serial entrepreneur by now. And I'm here to just lend a voice and do my part as a mastermind member since, I guess, 2017 or so. And ready to add what I can to this conversation.
Yeah, so I will say this. Eric, be ready, because I think you and I are going to be answering a lot of questions today.
Guilty, Manny.
I want Jay to actually introduce what he saw what's happening uptown, and I want him to do it because he's the one who made me aware of it. He reached out to me and wanted to know what was happening, why it was happening, and what we could do to change that. So here we are now having conversations 2 days in a row because this is the time. This is the time for many things. This is the time um, for justice reform. This is the time for ending systemic racism. This is the time for us as minorities to come together, but especially all of us who have African blood. We're Afro-Latinos, 4 out of 5 here. And it's important that we deliver that message and that it's clear for the people who are somewhere, somehow still confused about it because of a lack of exposure or education. So I would like to cover that. But again, I want Jay to introduce what happened yesterday in a minute. Jay, just hold it for 1 second there. I forgot that JD is great at doing one thing for conversations like this one. JD, please, if you could offer the rules for today's conversation.
Oh no, telling people what to do is one of my favorite pastimes. So rule number one, wrap it up. This is a very finite amount of time. Jewel, I have not known you for very long, but based on your connection to this guy and everybody else on here, myself included, we can talk. So let's keep it to 60 seconds or less until we get to the end.
Okay.
So that's the first one. Number two, normally I would say what's said here stays here, what's learned here leaves here, but we're broadcasting live. So everything is leaving here. Make sure that you are as intentional as possible with your speech. With that being said, respect is key. So mind your business. What I mean in detail is what you say, why you say it, and where you are situated and how you are vibrating. When you say it is your business. How you receive it, how it makes you feel, and where you're coming from and how you're vibrating with how your feelings are is your business. So regulate those two dynamics accordingly. And the rest is just, have fun. We here, I imagine we're going to give some good game to some people listening. I also imagine most of what's about to be said, most of the people on this call already know. That's fine. We're here to share. And with that said, let's get into it.
All right, Jay. Take it away.
Well, JD, Jewel, since you're my sister, I think JD might have to MC my funeral because that was awesome. Because if I'm going to go out of planet Earth in this realm, I think I need JD to MC that. I want to go out epic. That was epic, bro. So
that's why I love it. I'm telling you.
You can't say that. You can't say that to a lawyer with witnesses unless you really mean that.
That's true. That's true.
Guys, let me try one more thing. I have no idea why I can't hear Ye. Let me take off the phones here. Ye, say something, please.
Potato, tomato. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My old headphones don't like you very much.
That's okay.
They were discriminating you for being Venezuelan.
Yeah, that's right. By the end of this, we'll have a podcast called Arepa and Patacon. You know what I'm saying? We'll have
and gumbo.
And gumbo.
Yo, Platanos and collard greens is a whole vibe. Don't sleep.
That's what it is. So, yeah. So of course, my sister and myself, we knowledge of self and questioning ourselves and our existence is just our family's thing. We argue, we wrestle, we agree, we cry, we curse. I mean, that's what we do. We do this every day in our house, just for the record. So that's how we were raised. So we really care about people and we care about justice and we care about, creativity and expansion. However, in this time with all that's happening, what I thought was beautiful, and I'll condense it very quickly, was that we're seeing all the ranks of people of color waking up and coming together. So we saw solidarity happening. What triggered me was that when I received that information in the morning was I saw Dominicans chasing out what appeared to be African Americans or Black people, and what made me go crazy was they were screaming, "Yo, my nigga, let's go get these Black niggers." So I was like, this sounds ass backwards, right? Because particularly right now when we're at war with race, and this is me being Venezuelan because I'm an agent, right? I can blend into both sides. I know, okay, you know, I know the racist words, cocolo, moyo, mayate, and I know those Spanish niggas, those, you know, those Dominican motherfuckers, and you know, all the condescension. I was like, that's the time for this right now. So when I saw that, I was like, this is not what I'm not gonna be having. So I've been roasting corn, I've been roasting racist, and I've been baking a caviar liberal cake all the time for the last, you know, week and a half. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, people are upset because of the riots. Why I didn't see a march for Black Lives Matter? Why am I seeing a march only for the rioting and looting? Not saying I support rioting and looting. So then I wrote a post that, and that's where I wrap this up very quick, JD. I said verbatim on my post, I said, to all my Dominicans uptown, being racist towards Black people, and also using the N-word in everyday slang, know this, that 2 a.m. in the morning, ICE and the NYPD would not give a fuck. Okay? My sister is a lawyer, she can tell you that. They wouldn't give a fuck.
Listen, really quick, just so you guys know, ICE was out there Saturday night downtown Brooklyn in uniform. Yeah. ICE.
So exactly. And ICE, for you guys who don't know, that's immigration, right? And it's supposed to be a safe zone in New York, a safe haven. So wrapping up very quick here, I said, guys, let's just stop this stuff. And let's stop denying our African ancestry.
Put a bow on it. Put a bow on it. We already over a minute, Jay. Let's go.
All right, done. You got it. You see what I've said. I got time for this, so go ahead, baby.
So, are we interjecting? Anyone can speak freely, or?
Oh, no, Eric, you can take it if you got something on it. By all means,
Sure. I'm also going to say. So when Jules said something, I could not hear what she said. I think Manny, you should look into what's going on with the tech here as we speak. So I did hear everything Jay said, and Jay, I saw some of the stuff. Maybe not all of the stuff that you're referring to. I was deeply troubled by it as a Dominican that grew up in that neighborhood. Listen, there's no secret that in every nationality, in every race, we suffer from our own deterioration due to racism. We have internal racism within our races, Dominicans, and with Puerto Ricans, lighter to darker. It's the social systemic, prejudice. All of that happens within us. It's unfortunate, and it's all obviously based on education or the lack thereof. I was upset by it. I did call some people to try to reach out to some of those guys. I recognized one of them in one of those posts, and I spoke my mind. And I think it's just there's no right, there's no way to justify to behave that way and speak that way about any other. We have a large portion of us, of our blood and our DNA is African. I recognize that, and and the ones that are educated recognize it as well. I think there was a couple of knuckleheads, and we need to correct them. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. That to that point right now, to keep it short.
Yes. So I while you were talking, I was looking for this video that I shared with Jay yesterday before our conversation, and I want to make sure that I don't cut this this live stream short here as I share this screen. Okay, so this is it. Let me just I'm gonna share my screen real quick, just so that you can see what happened the morning after, yesterday morning, when it comes to a business owner whose bodega was ransacked. And I play this for you because I want to explain. It's going to be Spanish, but I want to explain the sentiment behind this from the person who I understood wanted to support the protest. And then this happened. And then I'm going to show you, the aftermath with the gentleman who faced those guys coming uptown. So let me share the screen. Let me see if I can do this with Instagram here. There we go. There we go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right.
Miren cómo me dejaron la bodega anoche, porque hijo la gran puta. Me quitó. Lleno de leche y la vaina por ahí, miren. Fue todo que lo barataron. Miren el negocio, miren. Miren lo que queda de la bodega, miren. La cigarrillera la llevaron con todo. Mire aquí, todo se la llevaron. Miren los cristales. Miren, la máquina lo barataron todo. Se llevaron todos los tickets al otro. Una cosa que se llenó eso de tickets ayer. Mira, se llevó toda esa vaina. De aquí, miren, muchachos. Miren todo lo que hay aquí. Miren cómo estoy yo, miren. Miren. ¿Usted cree que es justo? Miren eso. Después de que protesta, eso es sinvergüencería que hay en la calle. Eso es sinvergüencería que hay en la calle. La policía no agarra y mata a 2 o 3, le rompe las patas a 2 o 3, no cosa nada. Fue el negocio entero, miren que lo barataron, miren ahí. Estoy llevando toda la cerveza, todo. Un puerto dominicano con martillo y un boricua con martillo. Rompieron el cristal, miren eso, tomaron la tabla. Miren eso, miren, toda la bodega de barataron. El vino abrió eso y subió. Miren. ¿Usted cree que es justo? Mire, ¿usted cree que es justo? Con el sacrificio que uno hizo este negocio aquí. Que lo que tenemos es mucha deuda. Lo que uno tiene mucha deuda.
All right. So the man started saying, not like this, not like this. You can protest, but not like this. And then he goes on to say, cursing them out and saying, I wish the police, would take them all. And then he goes to say, with all the sacrifices that I've made to get this little business going, I'm in full debt right now. And as he's talking about this, his friend outside tells him, the guys I saw, the guys who did this, who broke down your window and looted, and there were 2 Dominican guys and 1 Puerto Rican guy. So here he is thinking about the protest and about the people supposedly coming uptown to ransack, and the same young men from the community were actually looting his business and taking the beers and all this. Then I saw the other video, which was about how the guys who from Inwood, the Inwood area, the Eric knows, organized not a protest or anti-protest situation, but more of a let's get together to protect our businesses in our neighborhood from what we hear is a threat of people coming here, not just to protest, but to loot and to riot. I was actually looking, after we had the conversation yesterday, Jay, I was looking at different posts on social media because we were trending #1 on Twitter. And I did see many tweets saying, we're going to go uptown, we're going to loot them MF. Like we can stand them or they're racist, we're going to go and take their stuff. So there were, that messaging was happening. People were talking like that. So the guys in Inwood, they care about their community. And many of them, the community, I'm sure, they support the cause for the protest. So this man, instead of reaching out, like I was telling you yesterday, reaching out across the aisle or from the neighborhoods to Harlem, for example, and say, guys, I know you guys are organizing protests in the area, and you want to come up here to Uptown Manhattan, where we live, and do it. Let's come together and do it together to make sure that we can also protect the neighborhood from the rioters and the looters. We want to make sure that you understand that we want to work with you and bring the business owners and everything in. But instead of that, what they did was that they said, okay, community up here, let's band together and protect the neighborhood from these people, these outsiders that who want to come in and loot and break things up. And just to wrap it up, I want to play the other video now, which was the aftermath of that, because there was a lot of backlash from that particular situation, because 5 young men of color who went up there at some point, I don't know which street it was, but they were confronted They were confronted. They were not, beaten or anything like that, but they were confronted and told to back away, not to come into the neighborhood, just because they were men of color, because they were assuming that they had come to riot. So let me just show this clip. This is gonna be like 1 minute clip, and have it right here. All right. So I'm gonna share it. Okay. Yeah. So a video earlier today. This is it.
Black Lives Matter, period. I'm Dominican and I'm black. What is you talking about? What I saw the mainstream media does, they took that little shit and try to make it about race. Don't get pulled into that bullshit, man.
I'll be ignorant to what's going on. These white people don't care about us. We jump on the internet and say certain things. But we got to understand where the heritage came from and in proper terms. We're not going to keep using the black and Dominican. Let's use Afro-Latina. Let's use Afro-Latino. Let's use those terms to stop the division. We want everybody to come as one.
We saw the situation came about. Incident that wasn't supposed to happen, but it brought together conversations that right now folks are coming together and addressing. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we can't divert from the message. It's about police brutality and police being able to get away with murder. So people coming together, putting out that call. Public apology right here.
Nobody got hurt, and everybody came together, and everybody understood
Black Lives Matter.
that at the end of the day, we are one human race. One.
They from Harlem, the Bronx, they from different boroughs, but they came together. The 5 individuals that the situation happened to last night came over here to Dykeman to be able to talk about it. And everything was squashed. Everybody has an understanding, and people just coming together and using this time to build as opposed to destroy.
God bless you, black men. God bless y'all, man.
Seeing that post, it gave the wrong message to the community, and they said that we wasn't trying to go against you, and they apologized, and we respected it. We both came together as one, and it showed that we could make change together.
That's fucked up, man. We on positive vibes, man. I'm outside. You feel me?
I'm comfortable to come back to Dykeman. I feel like I could come and relax and go get some fruit or go to Mama Juana Cafe and relax. And I feel good. Yesterday it was a different breed, but now I had a clear understanding, and I came as a man and got my respect as well.
I'm here.
But at the end of the day, we are one.
All right.
That's the best thing I've seen in 20.
We had Love JD coming back. So yeah, I was actually happy to see that happened. At the end of the day yesterday, the morning started with all full of negativity, and we were trending only because of the negative stuff. I don't remember the last time the Dominicans were trending so high on Twitter. And now I want to hear what you guys have to say, especially starting with Eric Cáceres, who's from that area. He was raised.
Did I lose you guys?
No,
I'm here.
No, we are here.
I'm here.
So yes, so obviously that message is the correct message. That's really how a lot of people feel in the neighborhood. There are always some knuckleheads. I'm not going to make any excuses for any of them. But what I do want to say is that the conversation is there are people trying to pivot the conversation. Okay, like the young man said on the video very, very eloquently. He said, the conversation is about social justice and to abolish this prejudice wave that's attacking us right now. It's not about how we feel internally. It's not about Dominicans not believing they're black. If some of them don't believe that they have black blood, ignorance. But another thing I should say about that is we have to honor our other mixes, right? So you can't put everyone. I mean, it's not proper to put everyone in the black. It would be wonderful, but what happens to I'm a total mix. What happens to those other mixes that I have in me? Do they disappear? And that's why I love the phrase Afro-Latino. I identify with that phrase. I do not identify with just being black. because I feel that I'm alienating parts of my family, parts of my heritage. You know, and I have respect for everyone across the board. That's, you know, that's really the message.
I have a completely different perspective on how I self-identify personally. And perhaps that has to do with the fact that I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And perhaps that's a result of my own fellow Latinos in New York, United States of America, constantly, as I felt, not accepting me, questioning my, whatever you want to call it.
Your blackness and your Latiness, because you have to depict both.
I don't identify with any colonizer personally, so I have a very different perspective. I identify as Black because I was born and raised in the United States of America. I went to school here from pre-K all the way to my postgraduate education, which was law school. I am now a practicing attorney in the state of New York. And what I find is that the way that I'm perceived by Americans is as a Black woman. So personally, my perspective on this panel is that I am Black. My parents are from South America. Just like anybody else's parents who were born in Kenya or who were born in Trinidad or who were born in Argentina or wherever they're from. I identify mostly with my Blackness because I do believe that because of my phenotype, that is how I am perceived by the world. I was also raised in a country that taught me from a very early age that if you have any drop of blood that is not white inside of you, you are deemed Black. And I wear that as a badge of honor. I wear that as a badge of pride. I personally don't see that as me diluting my heritage. I'm a Black woman that speaks Spanish, and I'm a Black woman that speaks Ebonics, and I'm a Black woman that speaks law. So that's my perspective.
So, and we have to respect that. I just think there's a lot of history that kind of goes away when you block and alienate, you know, the rest of your heritage. You mentioned your parents; they were from Venezuela, so are they? I'm curious. What are you? I don't
feel like that's an alienation. I feel like for most of my life, I have been in environments, including those in Venezuela, where Blackness is often hid, not talked about. It's a shame. The first thing when you're born is that the interest is in the kink of the baby's hair, the color of their skin, and the color of their eyes. So I choose to focus on my Black and also my indigenous roots, because those seem to be the roots that most Latin people are afraid to claim, and I'm not. So I hear you. I personally don't feel like it's a denial of my own heritage. I think it's a sense of pride that I have, and a sort of balancing for me mentally for a heritage that's been seen as dark, unwelcome, and mostly ugly. As a woman, especially, I don't know how you guys gender identify, so let me not make that assumption. I do identify as a woman, and I am a cis woman. So, you know, and part of being Latina is being perceived as being beautiful. Like, I'm not gonna front. That's like a very big part of our culture. So for me, it's actually a protest to identify as Black, because I want to remind everybody who sees me and knows my heritage that I'm not embarrassed nor am I watered down, nor am I going to identify as mixed or exotic. I'm not a car. So, you know, when you look at me, when you look at my hair, when you look at my skin, I phenotypically come across as a Black woman to a large extent. So for me, I hear what you're saying and I respect it as just not how I see it. I believe it's an honor, and I believe for all the years that I felt not this or not that, it's my form of protest.
Yeah, I mean those are valid points, and you have every right to feel that way. But I should share something. For example, in my experience, and even my wife's experience, growing up here, there's been plenty of times where I wasn't black enough. So I was discriminated against by African Americans, my black brothers, in high school, my freshman year of high school. As a matter of fact, I had to be transferred out of there because I was having serious issues defending myself. My wife has had the same experience. My wife is a mocha skin color. She grew up, born and raised on the Upper West Side, went to white and black schools, kind of mixed in between, and she had a lot of experiences where, for a large part of the school, the black population of the school, she wasn't black enough. And for the other side, obviously, she wasn't white enough.
I mean,
So where does that fit?
I would be lying if I didn't say I had, if I said I didn't have that experience. I would be lying. I think anybody, like that looks like the people on this panel has experienced that in New York City. So I have experienced that too. I think the reason why I think it's so important for me to say that I'm black and that I'm black in this moment is really and truly, you can look at it two ways. Perhaps this is the time for us to discuss our pain as Black Latin people. For me, I don't see it as that type of time personally. I think this is a time for us to come together and to recognize our beauty as Black people, and to not allow something as simple as language and who got to rape our mothers the quickest and the fastest as a tool to divide us at this moment. I think this is too important of a time for people to be allowing language and different forms of African music to divide us. So to your point, I have experienced, I wouldn't call it racism because I'm Black, but I have encountered discrimination from Black Americans. But at the same time, I want to say this, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Black Americans. And you wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be on this chat. I wouldn't have sat in classrooms that I sat in. I wouldn't have the job that I have today if it wasn't for Black Americans who spilled blood and on this soil in terms of, Black Lives Matter in America. So I am not dismissing Latin pain and Afro-Latin pain. I don't want to come across that way, but I just want us to not lose sight of the fact that Afro-Latinas wouldn't even be a thing in the United States if it wasn't for the sacrifices and the free labor and the rape that Blacks experience here, as well as our indigenous brothers and sisters who are the original people of this land. We cannot forget them.
I think you said one thing that really resonated with me about a minute ago or so ago. I think when you relate it to the time in the period that we're living, I think it's a great time for us to identify with our Blackness, whether we are, have Black in our bloods with other, whatever it is. If you have a little bit of Black in you, it's the right time to identify as Black. Now that I 100% agree with.
There you go. I'm glad that
we can also agree to disagree.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm just happy that we're having this conversation. And I also want to bring in, since we're in the region, I want to also bring in my Afro-Caribbean people, okay, and my Afro-Asian people as well, because they're a big part of our region. And those of us in New York have met the Trinidadian kid, who have met the, Jamaican kid who's miles away from Cuba and Puerto Rico. And we met the light-skinned Black kid from Atlanta. And we're all in this one room and this party, and we're like, what the fuck? We're all the same, but not. But yes, we're all the same. So I think it's a beautiful time that we're having these, we have the confidence. Because think about this. We've been systematically told to denounce our African blood as a way to feel no esteem, so we don't rebel, right? So if we don't rebel, they can maintain their order, and within that social order, we have no power. So those of us who enjoy eating crumbs and those of us who are starving are both proverbially starving. You see, so this whole caste system and la castas, these different types of, if you're brown, stick around, if you're black, stay behind, these kind of narratives exist all over the region in all languages, in the French, Spanish, English, because it's all the same colony, just different colonial masters. So I love what you all said. She's my sister, and she's a woman, and we've shared, we've had these conversations. Eric, I hear you too, Eric, because when I look at my family portrait, we see Chinese, we see white, we see East Indian, we see African, we see Native Indians, Wadao, Arawaks, and we're all hanging out. Then you come to America, and then you like,
and we're stronger together.
Yeah, we are stronger together.
Yeah. Wait. Hold on before you move on. And then you come to America, and what happens? I want to hear that part. That's the part.
When you come, that's the
what happens when you touch down on JFK? What's the first thing you start to realize?
They're like, holy shit, we're all black. The experience is black.
Okay, so now that we brought it back home, and
wait,
that was a good intro.
Wait, JD, because I want you to have the last word on this, in the sense of, you see us, you see us, you are from here, and I just want to make sure that I drop this one in before you come in. I respect all of your opinions. Obviously, I am first and foremost a black man. Especially here in the United States, it's important that we are clear and we identify that. Am I rough and choppy?
We hear you. A little scratchy, but we
coming in a little choppy though. But I can still hear.
So let me do something here real quick and
embrace the chaos, man. Paralysis.
It's okay.
How about now?
Crystal.
Okay, perfect. So I'm a black man, especially here in the United States. And I say that because when we are in DR, for example, as just one more Dominican man, we don't have this discussion when we're there. But if we're here, we have, and if they ask me there, obviously, that if that question ever comes, yes, I'm a black man. But that question never comes. Now here, I'm a black man who is of Dominican culture and has Afro-Latino blood, okay? Afro-Latino is African, Latino, then encompasses other things, Latin American countries, the indigenous, the Spanish. On my end, actually, when it comes to my mixture, I have Portuguese, and I even have Sephardim Jews. So I'm all of those things. But a black man is who I am. I'm a black man. Now, in many spaces, especially a black man with an accent, and because I wasn't born and raised here, and I didn't have the same education as you guys have growing up here, I wasn't exposed to the same things. I was exposed to different things. Not that I was lacking off on anything. It's simply that we had different experiences. So coming here, when I was 20 years old, I was already my psyche. I was already a whole human being with its own thoughts and ideas and education. So it was on me now, at that point, to seek to educate myself about certain things, and also to be exposed to other people, not to just be in a bubble and stay uptown with all the rest of the Dominicans, right? So by being exposed to other people, I'm able then to see what it means to say that you're black here. I was telling Jay yesterday, if you asked me 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if I was a black man, I would say no. And it's not because I didn't believe I was a black man. It's because what I was hearing, what I heard was, are you an African American man? And I was saying, no, I'm Dominican. Now I'm saying, and again, I'm not from here. You're coming to me with this question. We don't have this conversation there. And I want to let you know that I'm not a Dominican. I'm not from here. Are you? But do you think you're black? No. And again, I was young. I was 20 years old, and there was no ill intention whatsoever. It was all respect, and I never saw myself as a white person or anything like that. So, but that was my understanding. It wasn't until I had the conversations and I was exposed to this type of conversations, which we wouldn't have of time. We talk about everything else but this, that I started to understand where the people were coming from and asking me that. And I said, well, yeah, actually, I am a black man. And then I realized the importance of the messaging, right? What we say, who we are, what others hear, the impact that it has. And then that's when I said, okay, so I guess here I have to really put it up front first so that people understand. So it's learned behavior. It's learned behavior. And I'm gonna say this one last thing. I was telling Jay yesterday, in DR, when you go at 16, you go get your ID. And the ID, there's three things there. There's white, there's black, and there's Indio. And I think most Dominicans who are not super light skinned simply pick Indio because nobody wants to be black. Because being black means basically that you are, Haitian. And Haitian, just to be clear, there's a history there. There's a history. There's poverty on that side of the island. Nobody wants to be associated with poverty. When you are of darker hues, but even here in the United States, you have less opportunities. If right now here in 2020, if your name sounds black or basically doesn't sound white, then you have on your LinkedIn you have less offers. You go apply for a job, somebody else gonna get it faster than you, even with the same qualifications. So it's the same thing over there.
That's exactly the
Can
point.
I say something? Can I say something?
Sure.
I don't. If I have a quick 20 seconds here, I want to, because a lot of it is the flower of a seed, and the seed is colonization, right? If anyone out there wants to read the William Lynch essay, if you read the William Lynch essay about how to train a slave, a lot of my personal friends, I sent that, especially my friends who don't know this history, even outside of people of color community. I'll give you a quick story. William Lynch, where the word lynching comes from, they talked about, people of color and black people were out of control. They were revolting on slaves. So he brought a theory that how he was controlling the slaves, how to control slave population based upon how he controlled cattle and animals. And what he said to do was to do a couple of things. Quickly, one thing he said to do was to rape and mix the people. Another thing he said to do was to embarrass the male in front of the woman and the family. And he said, in that result, what would do, he would make an inverse in our relationships and our dynamics, where the woman would become more aggressive and the man would become more passive. And he said verbatim, in that system will self-replicate itself like a gene genetically, and this is a meme, mimetically, into 400 years into the future. And if you do so, it would replicate itself and divide the cat. And then the last thing I would say, he's disproportionately said that if you reward and divide them into a caste system and reward them disproportionately, they would create division amongst themselves, and they would never unite to revolt against the true minority, which is the owners and the slave masters. So I just wanted to make sure that point is the seed of a lot of what was used to divide us. So what we're talking about, like yesterday, with Dominicans versus Afro-Latinos and African-Americans, and I want to even say, my mestizo Latinos, those who have Indian and European blood, are also people of color and try to hide in their whiteness as well. And
let's talk about it.
And that whiteness as well.
Let's talk about it.
They're not white, because Simón Bolívar from Venezuela was considered castizo. He was never considered European. So those are on the caste system. So a lot of mestizo Latinos who are the lighter skinned ones, who are indigenous and white, try to deny their Indian ancestry and call themselves Spanish when we're not Spanish or English or Portuguese or French or Dutch, because it'd be like an African American running around calling himself English. It's the same idiocy of someone from Latin America considering himself Spanish, and you weren't born in Spain and you don't have an EU passport. It doesn't make any sense. I just want to make sure that was tight and concise.
Absolutely.
Black Lives Matter.
We all
Okay,
agree on that in this room. I would like to hear JD.
Yes. So, well, I'm trying to. Dang, man. All right. So now that we're here, we've done a quick loop-de-loop around Latin America and the Caribbean, and yeah, no, and that, which is good because you sort of have to do that that 101 history lesson to get people up to speed so that they understand the gravity of arriving on America's shores and having to throw essentially everything out of the window. Because one thing I've learned having had this conversation for the last 2 decades, a lot of my Caribbean friends and Latin American friends in general struggle with this because they get here and they don't realize that the people on the other side of the aisle, so to speak, don't really care how you cook your chicken. They don't care whether you say chicken curry or curry chicken. They don't care whether it's rice with black beans or rice and red beans. You're a nigga now. Congratulations, welcome. And so I almost feel like Morgan Freeman and what's that joint with the prison movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Exactly. It's like, oh man, you're new. You're not going to make it here long. Listen, this is how it works here. Because the reality of the situation is there's so much beauty, strength, and resilience. And if you really like do your homework, cooperation. I mean, like Blacks and Latinos have been trying to spark movements, especially like on the West Coast with the advent of the Black Panther Party in the 60s and 70s. And that's what directly led to the COINTELPRO breakdown from the inside, because much like the labor revolutions during the mercantilist age here during the first industrial revolution, they realized that if all of our workforce is unified, we no longer become the minority. The second we start to pool resources and come together and realize the unity, like, oh, okay, cool. I like salsa. You like West African music. You know, Carlos Santana said it himself. What I play is African music.
Yeah,
So
you know what?
Let me make my plan. You don't have 30 minutes, sir. All right. The point that I need everyone on this call, which I think we're all leaning in this direction. I think what I want to do now is move the conversation in the direction of, now that we realize we're on various compartments of the same boat, what do we do now for those that don't realize it?
That's a good question.
You know,
I'm not making fun of you when you say that. I just think it's so ridiculous that people are classing themselves in general based on which side of the boat they're standing on. But I hear you. You can go ahead. That's just very funny to me.
I just want to introduce this question for Noah Torah. He's one of our members, Mastermind Connect members out of Denver, Colorado. He's our Colorado chapter president over there.
Yeah.
And
I
Noah
I got this because I like this.
Wait, but let me. I'm not going to answer that question. I want you to answer it, but I want to give a context to people. So Noah is from is a Pacific Islander, right? Noah is from Fiji, and as a Fijian man, for those of you who don't know, Black people live in that island right by Australia. And on the other side of the world. And Noah has been living here for what, like 19, 20 years, as I remember in telling me. And he is asking, is claiming yourself Black hijacking the 400 years of Black experience here in the US? Like jumping a bandwagon kind of thing. Genuinely curious because I am trying to unstuck myself. As I read that, I realized that I highlighted on the screen and everybody can see it. So JD,
That's a great question. I can answer my perspective.
It's all good. I was trying to jump in, but I had it on mute. I was trying to take it off.
Go ahead. You can go first.
Exactly. No. I'm totally flexing my Black American card right now. So as someone who is a direct descendant of lowland Carolina Geechees, whose ancestors ran around the Florida swamps during the Seminole Wars, in which Africans who were enslaved in the American South teamed up with Seminole Indians to fight against the Spanish and the British. We all, listen, if you look remotely like this, there's a struggle somewhere. Now, being a Pacific Islander and that entire diaspora is in and of itself proof of the whole like paradigm of Black people and not swimming because they just use canoes to go across the Pacific Ocean. Why were they going across the Pacific Ocean? Well, people kept trying to enslave them and take their stuff. You know what I mean? Like the breakdown of why the Maori haka is so strong and why it resonates. It's a warrior chant. This was something that people had to create because they realized they needed to stand for their shit. So do I think that you hijack ours? No. Do I think that you understand the singularity in that, not just the struggle, but the resistance and the resilience, and still somehow maintaining humanity and arts and culture and smiles and just looking damn good, regardless of how well, how long you age. I think that shows solidarity. Of course, this is my opinion. There are other people that may get in their feelings about it, but once again, mind your business. Where you stand when you speak is on you. How it lands on them isn't really your problem.
Can I say something? Just want to drop a quick piece of rhetoric. Two things are true at the same time. It's not everything in life is not a binary. So I think you can embrace your own culture, and you can also embrace someone else's culture as you share an experiences, because ideally we can all share each other's experiences because the histories are connected. I just want to add that. Jewel, you were saying something earlier. You said you want to contribute to that.
I lost it. It's okay. It'll come back. I agree with the things that are being said.
So one thing I can say though about the concept of blackness and the English language, how it's defined, it's an abstraction. So do you talk about blackness as the color of the screen? Do you talk about blackness as an experience? Do you talk about coming from Africa? Is there something as colonialism, or do you talk about blackness as socialism? So when we break it down into those nuances, it creates a space for people to identify with blackness, because blackness to me is, because even scientifically, black and white is no color, right? Those are shades, strikes. So it's an experience. I think it's an impression. Am I losing you guys?
No, I think it's an experience. We were melanated. We were given a label of black. We have to run with what we have.
Yeah. So I think if we allow the space to understand that blackness is not just a color, or be told by another party how we should view blackness, allows us to expand the concept of Pan-Africanism internationally, which brings in all the flavors. So now when you walk into the African diaspora market, you can sample a guava, a mango, a cherry, an orange, caña, a plátano, corn. You can go around tobacco. You can pick around all the different flavors of it and feel pride in it. So I don't think it's one versus the other, in my opinion. I think we're able to have compassion for each other, empathy for each other, and then instead of claiming through scarcity of our own culture, share it with each other, of people of color, people from the African diaspora, and share what we know. Those are my comments on that.
It came back to me really quick in terms of hijacking. I think in order for us to answer that question, or for me to answer, and I am not by any means suggesting that I have answers or I'm some moral authority on race and the diaspora, but I think we need to address this before we address that, which is that there has been a tremendously long history of people from other parts of the world coming to America, benefiting from the Black American struggle. And what I mean by that is enjoying the fruits of not their labor necessarily, but their struggle, the whole kit and caboodle, Jim Crow, all of that. And having the audacity to come here and to think that you're better than, and when I say you, I'm not speaking to the person that asked the question, but I'm speaking to all of us immigrants and first generation Americans. We have a tendency to look down upon Black Americans, to call them lazy, to say that they're good for nothing, they don't work hard. So I think if there's a sensitivity about hijacking culture, that we first have to acknowledge the fact that there has been a not so nice history on both sides, right? And then you also have the Black American side, where I've experienced, like, my friend mentioned earlier, the discrimination from that side, which is you're not jobs, right? So I don't have the answer to whether or not it's hijacking, but I think we need to pay homage, and I think we need to pay respect, and we need to support however it is that you self-identify. If you are from the Fiji Islands, please know that you are living the life that you live in the United States, the mainland, because of that history and those experiences and that struggle. So I think if you come into a room in that kind of energy, then anybody who thinks you're hijacking anything might have a problem with themselves.
If I may
agree.
just address one point, and I agree with most of that, but there is another side to that coin, to the perception that when us as immigrants came here or continue to come here to enjoy the fruits of whatever this quote unquote great nation can give us, that it was only and solely on the backs of African Americans and their struggle. And that is painful, a very painful 400-year plus history. I know it very well. My father made sure that I knew that very well, and the rest of my siblings. But there is another side to that coin. I think the fruits that we come here to enjoy also stem from the systematic economic abuse that the United States has perpetrated against all of South, Central, and Latin America and other smaller countries since, I want to say, since the 1800s. If you look at the systematic colonization, and not maybe sometimes public, but economic, has been systemic, and it goes on till this day. So when
Speaking
I come
my language,
here,
brother,
I can
speaking
come
my
here
language.
and be, I can come here and be, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm looking to be extremely wealthy. I have no qualms about hiding that, and I think I deserve it, because it's a drop in the bucket. If I end up making $1 billion in this country, it's a drop in the bucket against what this country has sucked out of the country I came from, and the country some of my brothers came from, and South America, Central, everywhere, and even in some countries in Europe and far away. So I think there's two sides to that coin.
Good point.
I highlighted that because we live here, but I hear what you're saying.
I completely agree with that, Eric. I went over that with Jay yesterday on the call. We come here. I mean, I didn't come here. I came here to because the university is here. Even DR, you have a degree on the same exact career, okay, that you go to university for over there. If I study there and you study here and you go there, we have the same age, same accolades, same everything. Just because you got your degree from here, you will get the better position, you will get the job or more career advancement. So I came to study here, but it's true. Most immigrants come here to seek a better future, and when they come here, it's because there's nothing left there, or even worse, especially in 2020, is running away from danger and fear for their own lives, like in El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Honduras, and coming here because the resources from their countries were exploited by American multinationals. Okay, the companies from here went over there, created banana republics, okay, to take all the goods, left the rape, pillage, and nothing left but and that, because that's the other thing that we didn't discuss about yesterday, Jay, is the element of we're going to come in and help you. We're going to bring these businesses, these industries, and we're going to help you. And what we're going to do is that we're going to give you a loan. Okay, and that's why the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, comes in. They give you a loan. It's going to take you 20, 30, 50 years to pay, and with the interest that comes with that, you are screwed, because all your goods, your resources are taken. They pay little money for that, and then on top of that, they are in debt. And if you want to know why Haiti is in poverty for years and years and years, and I can only pray that one day it ends. They have owed and paid France. They still pay France just to leave them alone, to get the hell out of the freaking country. Okay.
And Manny, can I say something?
Yeah. Let me just I'll wrap it up. So
yeah,
that struggle is what has created this very immense tide of immigration, especially in the last 20 years, because there's nothing left. Everything's taken. Everything has been taken. So here we are. So what do? We come humble, and we take, essential services and going planting the strawberries and the avocado, so you can have your avocado toast, and still we behave in a way. I'm talking about the immigrant experience, where we're just trying to provide and make our mark. And in 2016, immigrants were labeled as rapists and criminals. And here we are. So go ahead, Jay.
So I mean, I just want to provide some historical component to this. I think we need to stop any part of the African diaspora, anywhere in the West, specifically comparing our countries as better than any other country. I want to save this one point. And can you guys hear me well? Just want to make sure. This is an important point.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Anyone that disrespects a Haitian, anyone that disrespects a Haitian or the Haitian flag is a moron. And the reason why, Haiti was independent in 1804. Okay. America was independent in 1776. 1804. Haiti was the first Black republic, or a republic of color in the West that was free and independent. Number two, any person from South America, anywhere, has to know that Simon Bolivar went to Haiti and sewed the Gran Colombia war flag and based it off the Haitian war flag. And the flag of Gran Colombia was sewn in Haiti. Okay, that flag was sewn in Haiti. So anytime someone from Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, even Panama, even the Guianas, even Amapa, northern Brazil, even as down into Peru and parts of Argentina, Haitians fought in that war. Haitians also fought in everyone's war in the West.
And they were made to pay for that, Jay. They were made to pay for that, because it's not just France. Okay, this is not just France. France is taking the money, but the ones supporting it basically started here. Okay, and every other freaking country that still has colonies and power over other lands. Okay, and they don't want to let that go. And they saw what happened with Haiti. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just had to say, I felt like my blood is boiling right now, because
because it should blow.
They were made to pay.
Because our cultures is not slave food alone, merengue, reggae, hip hop, trap, salsa, vallenato, soca, calypso, parang. It's not just that. Our history is also a history of revolution. Okay, our Maroon brothers in Jamaica, they also were Jamaica. Okay, Jamaica was never colonized. That's why Jamaicans, we love Jamaicans, because they're Maroons. They were proud people. So we need to understand all of our peoples so we can understand ourselves completely. Because I find a little bit of those spirits in everyone: Dominicans, Haitians, Jamaicans, because my family, we try to enjoy all the cultures the best way we can. And I think that roundness of us allowed us to feel something. And to me, all those cultures in the Caribbean, all the cultures in Latin America, all the cultures in America, the more we kind of combine and find that African trace route and that spirit of revolution, I think we can have some pride that we can pull from, even if we don't have our own lineage or history, because it's a shared story. I just wanted to make sure I added some historical context.
To your point, if I may say something very quickly, I think for me, I identify that connection in one specific way. And I'll go back to your point with the Haitian Revolution. Toussaint Louverture was, you're all familiar who he was, general, he ascended and created the revolutionary. So a lot of people don't know that his revolutionary models, right, were adopted even here in this country.
Right.
To help abolish.
Absolutely.
They had no idea how to go about it. So Lincoln looked at him as an example and how he defeated who he defeated systematically and then became the first black free republic in the world. I think, and I think that's the connection. And I think that brings us to one point. I think we're all one. I wish that we can strip the conversation of pigmentation of our skin. And I think we're all, black, indigenous, mixed freaking people that are proud of whatever color we are and suffer and wear our history on our sleeve, and our revolutionary vein is alive and it's showing in this time now. And I wish the conversation would shift from that into, I wish also that there was more criticism, if I may, of these guys that are looting, because they're in effect diluting the message. And let me just say this: I understand totally when people have been oppressed and they have no voice and they have no weapon, both in real life and ideologically,
literally,
you resort to extremes, right? You resort to extremes. It's the same example of terrorists, the worst people in the world because of the way they operate. But the one thing you cannot deny is that they get their message through. So I get that. But I don't want to mix that with peaceful protesting. We got to continue on that route, because the other way is diluting our message, and they're playing it against us big time.
Yeah, but what do you do?
Terrorism.
Terrorism. I was bringing up a point.
Terrorism is watching men and women on TV being killed by other men and women in uniform.
Right, and that's their message.
Terrorism is being psychologically abused by the systemic oppression in this country for centuries. Terrorism is peacefully protesting, not yesterday, not in 2016, not in 1975, not in 1950, and still being killed, massacred, however you want to describe it. You can call it a genocide at this point. That's terrorism.
Cool. I totally agree with you. I don't want you to...
Let me finish my point, please. Yeah. I want us to be very mindful. I want us to be very cautious of the words that we're using to illustrate and compare what is happening in the streets.
No, but that's where you missed my point. I think you missed my point.
Let me finish my point before we make a determination as to whether or not I missed it. Please.
Yeah, I definitely think you missed it. Because I think you're categorizing. I think you're thinking. I'm sorry, just if I may. I think that you think that I'm categorizing the looters with terrorism. That's not what I did. What I did was I understand that sometimes you have to go to extremes to get your message through. And when I talk about terrorists, I say I don't compare the two. I say they have their way of delivering their message, and it's atrocious. It's the worst thing in the world, but they get their message through. That's what I was saying. I wasn't comparing the two by all means, and I'm sorry I interrupted you.
I lost my thought. I don't remember. You can go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I just didn't want to.
Go ahead.
So I want to make sure I make clear that protests, rioter, and looter are three different things happening at the same time. I don't want to make a moral decision on that.
I want to say something, Jay, before you go on. I also want to say really quick that the views being expressed in this video are not shared amongst all panelists. I just want anybody who's in this room listening to me, who knows how I feel, that I'm saying that on the record officially. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. So, but what I'm saying though, that we need to make sure that we don't conflate.
Right. Wait a minute.
That's that disclaimer talk.
Yeah. I'll copy and paste that one too, guys. But I mean, I want to say something. I love that we're not dumb. I want to say that Black people and people of color and brown people are not dumb. Whoever's listening, that's not that. I want you to tell your friends that we're not dumb. As you can see, we're passionate. We have diversity in politics. We have diversity in culture and ethnicity. We have diversity in thought. So we're not just one simple narrative. We're not just world star or pacifist. We're a little bit of everything. And that's why we're hard to catch. And we are not going to stand for racism. We're not going to stand for any oppression. We're not going to stand for any covertness. And we're definitely not going to stand and dilute our revolution for cake eaters, okay? Pacifists, people who will not, according to Benjamin Franklin said, beware of those who are willing to trade away their liberty for comfort, because they don't deserve either liberty or comfort. So, in this time,
let's get him on a board.
This is Benjamin Franklin. So I do not endorse, for the record, I want to be on the record. I do not like our businesses being destroyed. I do not like violence. However, the First Amendment is backed up by the Second Amendment. And hold on. Let me just I just want to make sure I make this point clear, because I want to make sure we need to understand our rights, okay? And we need to understand the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment applies to everyone of color in America. So we need to make sure that even though we might try to be divisive about who we are and where we're from, the Constitution is the only thing we have to stand on. You know, so we should unite and unify. And that's my point. That's really my.
And I want to just add one last thing here, guys. I don't want to have to take too much time. I have a pragmatic approach to life and a lot of things that I do, and I think that we're missing a great opportunity in large part. At least what I can see, what I can read in the somewhat credible social media that I try to consume stuff from. You know, there are pockets, but I think that we have to talk about reform in a pragmatic sort of way. So what are we doing about protesters out there? What are we doing about that one protester? How many people, direct connections to you or indirect, your circle of influence, how many of those people that are out protesting with you or looting, whatever they're doing, are you going to get out to the vote, to the voting booths at every level, from the lowest level to the highest level? How come we're not? How come we're not flooding the ballots? How come we're not voting flooding the ballots? You know, in every position from councilman on up with people of color.
Who are you guys voting for? Who are you guys voting for?
I want that to be I want to take this momentum right now and drive, which is a lot of that stuff. You know, Obama said yesterday. President Obama said it eloquently. She said we have to shift that momentum, use that momentum right now, and go to the ballot boxes and try to defeat in overwhelming fashion. And that's the only way we get change and reform.
Can I ask you guys a question? How many times have people of color gone out to vote and nothing has changed?
Yeah, but how many times have people stayed home? There's a large part of the population, African American and Latino, that don't go out to vote.
Give me a second. Before you ask me that question, please someone on the panel answer the first question, which is how many times have Black and Hispanic people, since we're not the same apparently, how many times did Black and Hispanic people go out and get active at the polls, and yet here we are still hashtagging dead men and women? I just want to ask that question. And by the way, this is someone who supports the Constitution and the right for everyone to vote. I have a question. I would love anyone in the audience, anyone on this panel to answer that for me. Since there's talks about peaceful protest, not looting, it's diluting the message, and we should get out and vote. Explain to me, illustrate how that's worked for us in the
past. Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah,
so like,
go ahead, JD, go ahead.
It is it's sort of a catch-22 with that.
Before anybody talks to me about local elections, we all know local elections are not patronized enough, and they're super important. I understand that. I hope our listeners understand that. Aside from that point, which everyone is quick to try to debunk the whole voting thing as well. People don't go out and vote. Well, what about the times when people did?
Well, before they were going out to try to get the right to vote. So now that we do have that, and I'm gonna assume everybody on this call is familiar with all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into the Voting Rights Act. If not, Google is your best friend. We got that. It's in your hand. Search it. All I'm saying is it is a catch-22 because if you do, there is absolutely positively no guarantee. And that says more about the dynamics of politics as a career choice and the caliber of person that typically, not always, because definitely not all politicians are bad people. Hashtag BP Eric Adams. But all I'm saying is the nature of what the political industrial complex that we have does is that those who get in power often forget about those who put them there. And so if you do vote, there's no guarantee that your agenda will be addressed or followed up on. If you don't vote, then you don't vote. People are going to point at that and just say that you don't participate in the civic process. You're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I say vote. I also say vote with your wallet, and I also say consolidate your own resources because if there's one thing that I've learned is that America is business. If you look at the breakdown of our Constitution, these corporations are using, the same amendment rights that individual human beings should have. And so I think your biggest line of defense is going to be ownership and equity above all things, because politicians ultimately take orders from people that have purses.
Yeah, that's great.
Guys, I just want to pause for a second. I want to pause, and I want to be mindful of the time. I just want to let you know that it's 5:21. We've been here for an hour and 21 minutes already. This is a very exciting conversation. I would like to know how you feel about continuing it for...
I'm enjoying myself. I want to continue if you guys do.
I got a little more time.
Okay.
I like this. This is good.
Okay, how about the people? I want to hear from the people watching. Leave it in the comments and let us know how you feel. All questions. If you have any questions, if you have any...
Yeah, you know what?
Anything to add? I think this is the time.
That's a very good point. I want to talk about that. As an attorney, I have to bring that point up. When we talk about voting too, we have to discuss the rights that many of our immigrant brothers and sisters do not have the right to exercise. And also people who have been convicted of crimes that are nonviolent, that have deemed them to be felons, are not allowed to go to the polls. So we have to mix that into this conversation as well.
Right. So I think I just want to say a framework too about revolution. I mean, Eric, I would never discount what you're doing. Joel, I can never discount what you're doing. JD, Manny, because we're all part of the revolution. However, I want to say, I have to say, I do not like centralized thought. I like decentralized thought. So the fact that we have 5 people on the panel with 5 different approaches, but maybe, or at least 2 different approaches for sure, it makes it harder to figure out. So I just want to say, in terms of the art of war and revolt being a prefix of the word revolution, I would like to say that I'm happy to know that we have an extreme and spectrum of how we should approach this. Let me tell you, give me liberty or give me death. Don't tread on me our American ideals. Those are not pacifist ideals. And also, I do respect MLK, and I also understand civil disobedience and passive disobedience. However, there's a letter that I encourage everyone to read about MLK when he was locked up in jail in Binghamton. And Manny, I'll give you a link if anyone wants to have it, where he got fed up. Yes, he got fed up of being completely passive. And he said, and he called out his white liberal friends and his caviar cake eating friends and said, the worst thing to do is be apathetic. And the worst thing is to assume that the only approach to revolution is through civil disobedience or passivity. So Eric, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's not about one tactic versus another. I think we have to think about a range of tactics on all fronts, both in real life, economic, financial, political, social, technological, both implicit, explicit, both standing army, both small army. We need some white allies. We do need to be more educated, and we need to not be elitist, because all of us here are intelligent. We ourselves can't judge people who've been abused and traumatized and who don't understand. Our Black and brown brothers, a lot of them who don't have the opportunity to understand. We need to reach out and teach and figure out ways to make them understand how important this conversation is, after you got a couple of degrees and read a couple of books. You know what I'm saying?
I just want to say, since everybody is on this panel speaking about the fact that they are planning to vote and that we should vote, I should say, to give another perspective, I, for one, will not be going out to the polls in the fall. I'm off the clock, so I can say that now. I will not be supporting Joe Biden. I do not believe he stands for my rights or people that look like me. And I believe in holding your vote hostage. They're gonna at me now.
They are. Now, what is going to be your alternative? Now that you know what you're not doing, what are you going to do in space of that?
Wait. I'm older than you, and I might lose my thought. Let me just get it out.
You're right. You are older than me. Look at that.
So Jay. So, you kind of woke up my revolutionary, ancestors.
Good. Oh, man, I was going to say.
Here's what it is. So I come from a family
Let me introduce that.
Seriously,
they don't know. They don't know. Eric. I was going to introduce that part. And hold on. Let me just say this here. Not in your defense, because we all have different opinions here, and we all basically agree in the essence of it. But just to give you some background, and I know that Jay's and Jules, mother, for example, was a freedom fighter, and her picture is the one on the flyer that we put today, by the way. So that was their mother.
It wasn't me; it was my mother.
Right. So that's exactly the point. But I just want to say, speaking here for the two Dominicans in the room, we both come from freedom fighters, revolutionary ancestry. My lineage on my father's side is actually from the Dominican independence. One of the fathers of the founding fathers. I'm a descendant of his, and Maria Trinidad Sanchez, who actually confectioned the Dominican flag. We were talking yesterday about Trujillo, which was the dictator who was in power for over 30 years, who was put there, by the way, after the American occupation. They actually put him in place as the puppet. And when he became unhinged, when he thought that nothing could touch him, and he was committing atrocities, including the 40,000 Haitians recorded, it was more than that, that were killed over there, being Haitian, of half Haitian himself, by the way. Eric's, I don't know if it was your grandfather, you can talk about that, but I just want to say that he was part of that crew who went and executed freaking Trujillo, on the highway, all right? And they fought bullet to bullet with him and his driver and his security, okay? So that's where he comes from. He doesn't shy away. We don't shy away from a fight. I just wanted to say that. Now, you can tell that story, Eric, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew.
Well, I think you did.
Remix your own family story, Eric. Remix it.
No, you did a good enough job doing that.
You guys are related?
No, we're not. That's what I'm saying. Two different lineages of freedom fighters.
The point I want to make.
So dope.
The point I want to make is that, Jay, I'm not against picking up arms and going to battle for what you believe in, for freedom, for justice, for equality, whatever your fight
Second Amendment right
to be. But I like to go to the head of the snake. I don't see the value to my message. Me going to the store in the corner, the guy that services me and sells me milk or whatever I buy, destroying his store in my community. I'm more of the guy. Let's get elite and let's go against the man that's oppressing us. Right. I go direct to the source. That's my point. So it's about that. That's when I go against the looters is that don't destroy your own community. You got the fire in you. You're revolutionary. You take arms and you stand against the man that's stepping on your neck. And no pun intended. You understand?
Yeah. I want to say something. Eric, you sound like a needle, okay? But a needle needs thread, okay? And that thread creates a quilt, okay? And that quilt is the American flag. So it's sewn with a lot of different thoughts and ideologies. This is not a white supremacy country. This country is a country of all people. And Black and brown people and immigrants who've come here, we need to hold that true. And all my white conservative friends who believe in the Constitution, if they think racism doesn't lead to fascism, they need to look at history. Just Google Adolf Hitler. And all my elite pacifists who thought they could hide in their elitism, before Hitler got all the Jews. He left the rich Jews alone to help them organize all the poor Jews. And then when he was done with that, then he got the rich Jews. And when he's done with all the Jews, he started going after other nations. And after he was done with all the nations, he hit Russia, of course, the Russian winter, and the rest is history. So I want us to recognize that even though you may not identify with even being black, and if you're Afro-Latino, which is another conversation, just realize
which
that
is
the struggle, which is another colonial insanity,
which is mental illness. Let's call it what it is. Not another discussion. It's literally mental illness.
It's this disassociation from Stockholm syndrome and falling in love with your abuser, right? And I also want to make a last point here. I know I want to condense thoughts, but I need to make sure that I share this. The abused and the abuser. Okay, what happens when you see recurring abuse? You begin to rationalize that abuse and in order to cope. So you start denying the sources of that pain by diminishing it. So I like pain and discomfort to wake up apathy. And Eric, you and I are a little bit older. I'm thinking, I'm the second youngest person on this panel. I don't know, JD, where you at? Because you look good all the time. But I would say to me, we need to think about apathy, Eric. Like someone said here on the chat, Kaepernick was kneeling. They didn't give him they were giving him shit. Okay? We burned a couple of garbage cans and ransacked a couple of empty I'm not saying the bodegas are good, which is a couple of Apple stores that are assured, and all of a sudden you have cops kneeling and you're saying Black Lives Matter. So what I'm saying
wait, and you also
homies.
Wait. And now legislators can now find the time to get to the floor during a pandemic to defund police. All of a sudden, in a few short days.
Right.
For things we've been screaming about.
So it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of sancocho in 5 days, So we, in every good sancocho, you have a little bit of pepper. Okay? Now a little bit of pepper
and sancocho always
was those young guys.
Sancocho always starts with love. Always.
Yeah.
And to land this plane, that's I am hungry. I do want some sancocho de gallino right now, straight up. But what I'm saying is, dang, I almost lost it. Okay, the idea of peace. We need to make sure that we have a very clear-cut understanding of what true peace is. Peace is an option. Peace is the active decision that I can go on wreck all this, tear this whole situation up. I can invoke strife. I can invoke bloodshed. I can raise the fields and pillage the village. I'm choosing not to because this is the more productive option. What many people are realizing is that a lot of our communities have already been held hostage, as was, mentioned in our comment section. And so what they are was never peaceful. They were neutralized. They were euthanized. They were dormant. Their power was taken away. That is not peace. That is it's weakness. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, that's not peace at all. That's harmlessness. And I think this country, it's not endemic to the United States. Any oppressive force likes its subjects to be harmless because now they don't actually need to take their needs into consideration. Every now and then you just go. Carrot and stick have worked historically for so long because people are generally self-interested and or straight up lazy. That's why you can give somebody the key to unlock the secret of the universe. If it requires consistency and sweat equity, 80% of the people you get a key to ain't gonna get through the door. That's why you have sticks and carrots. If the carrot of unity, solidarity, and happy, healthy communities is not enough to move you to act in our best interest collectively, including yourself, then I have to use the stick and I need to light your building down so that you understand that I'm not here to fuck with you. I don't have time. We're tired. It's been years. We've patiently marched. We've been praying. My parents have been holding it down for decades. My parents are almost 70 and they came to a demonstration with us. Why are they still demonstrating for the same stuff?
I'm there with you, man. I'm there with you. But that building, the thing with me is that building has to be the city municipal building. The the federal building, the government buildings. It's the government that's keeping us down. It's not mom and pop shop in the corner. You understand? There is a
Chua, you're laughing.
Absolutely. So next time, make sure, Eric. So next time we hit in the street, make sure you got your wagon with your Molotov cocktails, and you got your Google Maps GPS so they can follow you, and you can show them where to aim it.
Y'all are getting very Che Guevara on this line. I don't know if we're encrypted. I don't know what's going on.
You know,
it sounds like a very off the line conversation.
You know, just to bring it back, just to bring it back. You're right, Joe. Just to bring it back.
They're gonna kill it. They're gonna kill the feed.
We could talk like that on Signal. We could tell all your friends to have that talk on Signal.
I tell your friends, right? So I do have a question. I do have a question for the guys, for you guys here, and also for the people watching. Please drop in the comments, any questions or any commentary about this part. How do we bring the other minority groups together to support this cause? And A, and B, how can we be more specific? The Latin American community, Afro-Latinos, how do we offer an education or a compelled messaging for them to take action, for them to get involved and not be silent, and not to have this lens of, well, yeah, supported, that man shouldn't have been killed, because they focus just on like the latest news, just what happened to George Floyd, but nothing that happened, previously. It's like a week span. Whatever the media is throwing down on the table, that's what they're consuming. That's what they're talking about. They forget when they see this rioting or looting, which again we already addressed the fact that many of them are outside forces, with nefarious agendas. Yes. How can we ensure that they understand that A, they have a role in this? We all have a role in this, in the solution. And B, that we have to have empathy for others, right? And that in itself should lead you to take action. If you don't know enough about what's happening, then pick up a freaking book, do some research. There's a lot of content, even Netflix has a lot of content available, for movies from like 13 and a bunch of others. But you can educate yourself. You can be proactive and actually looking into the issue. So I want to hear from you guys, and I want to hear from the people watching here in the comments about what they think could be solutions, or what they think is the issue that's keeping people in the symptoms rather than the sickness.
Let me just start off, because I'm the more macro person, just in my personality. So I would just give I think every revolution needs a manifesto. Okay, and I think we need a collective manifesto that brings in all our different divided groups into this manifesto. In every movement you had Dadaism, Surrealism, you had Cubism, you had socialism, communism, capitalism. Every ism and schism has a manifesto. We need a new manifesto, a new meta tag with rules and specific our own constitution and what we need. I'm already starting to work on something like that already. I know a lot of them. I'm sourcing a lot of historical references. I think we should see what this looks like and pass it around to kind of see what it looks like. And that's really my first step, is a manifesto, so that we can see what this future look like. And then I'll leave it to some of you who are more tactical.
I think part of that manifesto, and if you agree, could be how we view the oppressed, on how the new form these things should happen or should take place. How should they police our community? That benefits, and it benefits all of us. I think that conversation has to be that technical. How does the conversation? How is the cop supposed to pull up to a corner? There's a couple of guys hanging out. How do you address those guys coming in? You can't do it the way they're doing it now. It's racial profiling. It's the aggressiveness. It's all of these things that are necessary. But by the same token, we have to educate our own people, our own young people. Yep. Once that manifesto is written, what can we do to de-escalate in certain terms. If you find yourself in a situation where you did something wrong and you've been confronted by a police officer and he's following that manifesto, you have to be a good human, a good citizen as well, and do nothing to escalate or trigger anything. Just let him make his mistakes. Because after reform, they will be charged and they will be criminalized in the eyes of the law and the eyes of the world. In a perfect world, that's what that manifesto has to achieve.
Okay, with that manifesto from a case specific standpoint, like the NYPD, would that manifesto include the steps for a defunding or divestment from systems that directly oppress the populations that that manifesto is intended to serve and represent?
Absolutely.
We can start by you know, I'm sure people have been seeing this online because it's become very popular on Instagram and Facebook, showing the budgets of our local PD departments. And a lot of the money that's spent on PD is not only spent purchasing military gear and weapons, but a lot of that money is spent on settling cases from officers who don't know how to conduct themselves like true civil servants. So I definitely think, since you mentioned it, JD, that defunding the police, a good place to start is their budget from the city, which means it comes from New York City taxpayers.
I also would like to add, Eric, if I may, just quickly, we need to also have transparency and accountability with police, because transparency, the way the American works, every law has checks and balances. If you have someone is paid by our dollars to enforce the law and there's no checks to keep that person in balance, then how is that even constitutional? So if we can't even see the jacket or the record of the NYPD's behavior, how can we even begin to look at this problem? So we need to really attack those problems specifically, and that's a more tactical to my grander thought.
And one more thing, they would be transparency and a good look into their training process. So if you look at one of the biggest atrocities and one of the biggest mistakes in the police training manual that I see, for example, I'll give you a quick example. There may be a disturbed individual mentally that has, less than a lethal weapon, may have a stick, may have a bat, may even have a knife, and maybe 10, 20, sometimes 30 feet away from an officer. Even if he's making aggressive gestures and he's not yet approaching that officer, do you know that officers are trained to shoot center mass as opposed to trying to hit their legs to incapacitate, maybe detain, but not kill? That is a fact. And I don't condone that. And you know why they do it? This is the only answer that I've gotten from people in the force and attorneys. We sat down in a round table sometime last year over at the Manny knows the Harvard Club with Ed Young and these guys. And it's because they're afraid to miss, because it's a little harder to hit a moving target and hit someone's leg to detain them than it is to shoot them center mass to stop them with lethal force. That is their only excuse. So what does that tell me? Better training. What does that tell me? Less lethal weapons.
I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying, Eric. I also agree with the fact that you said that we do need to educate men, women, and children about their rights and how they should interface with police departments. I believe in that 1,000%. And I do think that's something that I need to get better at expressing to people so that they do know how to dialogue, if that's what you want to call it, just in case anyone is law enforcement in the chat. But what I will say too is that a lot of the videos that we've been seeing online, while you do raise a good point about how they're trained, and I've never been a police officer, and that's never been my job, but a lot of the videos that we're seeing online, we're not seeing videos of people who are fleeing on foot. So while I agree that that is something we need to address, the training and why they're being trained that way, the issues that we're seeing today being streamed on Facebook Live and being recorded on people's cameras, we're not seeing situations you know, we're not, or at least we're not talking about those situations. I'm sure those situations are occurring all the time where they have to accost somebody who's on foot, but that's not, you know, that's not, it's not that it's irrelevant, but
no, it's just one example. Just one example. You know, there's many scenarios. We have to talk about when you stop somebody in a car. There's an element of fear that they say,
and we have to talk about the fact that people of color are more likely to die by the hands of officers than people who are white. So
now, I don't want us to get too close down the law enforcement branch. Can we move it back to the manifesto piece? Because I know the manifesto and law enforcement, as it relates to community relations, can be its own 2-hour call.
Yep. So, Jay, but wait a second. That was important. I don't want to just jump over it. There's something that I wanted to say about. You know, we had a call last Sunday, one of these lives actually, not a call, and the Brooklyn Borough president was there, Eric Adams, and he's a former police officer, I believe, a captain in Queens, New York, and he was saying when a similar question was posed to him that when it comes to police training, at least for the NYPD, all you need is 96 credits. And the 96 credits, they don't even have to be about anything related to law enforcement or law. It could be taking, baking classes, and learning how to make cookies. And 96 credits get you there. Then they get training for 6 months, and they're given a little booklet that they carry in their pockets with some local laws, and they're giving a training. That basically said, you have to protect yourself, protect your brothers, all times. And then I remember reading Malcolm Gladwell's latest book, Talking to Strangers, where he touches on, Sandra Bland and all these things. And he said that the whole study that came about in Kansas City, I think it was, when that crime was running rampant there. They try different approaches to law enforcement and policing, and the whole thing about the cars, making rounds every X amount of time, and the walking the blocks and whatnot. They tried that, and they didn't see effectiveness in calling crime. Well, they had to do something. They had to, because it was crazy, so they needed to present the image of that. And what I learned from listening to him is that the police start from when they pull you over, for example. They start from the premise that you're doing something wrong, and not only that you're doing something wrong, that you are basically a criminal, especially with people of color. Yeah. You are a threat. So it's on. They start from that point, and it's on you to show them that you're not a criminal. Right. So they are looking at you as if you are a threat, not just a citizen that had a broken light, tail light. Come in, and then they start, what do you have in the car? What do you have here? Can I look? The whole approach is aggressive. The whole approach is unfriendly. Okay? And seeking for a fault. You know what I mean? So how do you address that? That's training.
I have another suggestion to add. There's something called incentive bias, right? I never rely on someone's ethics or morals. I force their ethics and morals by literally looking at what drives their bias. So their bias is driven by money. So according to someone as a law enforcement person, we spoke, and they talked about the amount of money NYPD makes. Okay, they don't make that much money relative to the job they think, but the only way they can make money is that there's an incentive bias to get collars, so that if they need to buy an extra toy or get an extra some money for a vacation, they know the only way to make money is to get a collar.
That's fake news. That's fake news. I can speak from a former such and such person. They make buku amounts of money on overtime in New York City. In fact, when an officer is getting 3/4 out on disability, you have to average their last 5 years of overtime in order to pay them out. That's how much money is made on them sitting around our neighborhoods, literally just looking for trouble. But to get back to JD's point, about the manifesto, because I think that's important.
One more thing, so we can move on from this topic. And I'm not anti-police or anything like that. I don't advocate for violence. I'm just trying to get your thoughts on certain things that I'm reading and finding out about. So somebody posted this, and it was a quote from Constitution.org, a nonprofit organization. And I want to hear your thoughts, especially you, Joe, as an attorney.
Okay.
And this is what it says, and I quote: U.S. citizens have the right to resist an unlawful arrest. Citizens may resist unlawful arrest to the point of taking an arresting officer's life if necessary. An illegal arrest is an assault and battery. The person attempted to be restrained of his liberty has the same right to use force in defending himself as he would in repealing any other assault and battery. These are not my thoughts.
Who wrote this?
Constitution.org. It's a website that basically offers people excerpts from the Constitution and people's rights. Listen, again, I will let you talk. I'm not saying that I condone it.
Right.
That's not where I'm going with it. It's a question.
I'm gonna check them out right now, because I'd like to see what
I
think somebody run those facts, because
right.
I think without any reform, it's a tinderbox.
Yes, these are not my thoughts. I'm not advocating for violence or anything like that. It's just that the topic is here.
Can I say something, though, Manny? Even though I'm Jewel's brother, I'm 100% behind that. We should know all the entire Constitution and all the amendments. I literally posted it today. I think everyone should, and this is practical things. We should all have body cams and cams in our car. We should, those who can get can get legal carries, and you know, the Second Amendment right is something that should be part of the manifesto, because the right to protest is backed up by the Second Amendment right. I do think that we should understand the Constitution. In the Constitution, there talks about that you need, you know, legal cease and seizure. They need to have a warrant by a judge to do certain things. So the exploitation of the Constitution and the erosion of law, okay, is a problem. We need to check that by knowing our legal system. And also, I would like to say that that we should not trade away any of those rights, even in a minor emergency or convenience, because those precedents are set. People don't know that these temporary, and Jewel and I talk about this in our legal circles, talk about this, that things that the government does temporarily tends to never get rolled back. So in 9/11, 2,000 people, 3,000 people died, and they had this temporary Patriot Act, which was a temporary pause on our constitutional rights, which is 20 years later is still active. So
and now they can trace you everywhere.
Yeah. Yes. So we need to be very careful, especially my bleeding heart liberal friends, to be careful not to let the Constitution be eroded. So I think that should be in the manifesto too. I think we need body cams. I think we need to have cameras in our houses, in our cars. I mean, I don't know that's the answer. I don't think there's one thing that this the answer. We're not comparing tactics, but I want you to be able to approach me and know that I'm a waving sign of disobedience and law. You know, I want you to come on my property and see a sign: beware of dog, Constitution, American flag, gun waving citizen. I want you to see this law, this law, this law. I want you to know that you're on camera, because by the time you go through all of that, you're like, you know what? Not here. And that's what's happening with them. They're being provoked because they're being recorded, right? So I would say covert racists don't like straw man. They like to present straw man attacks, which is a diversion of the point. They like to hide their racism through rhetoric, but covert racists need to be exposed. So if you see anyone anywhere being racist or discriminate to anybody, we should have that culture built in. I'm glad to see that that's the culture it's in right now.
Amen. Amen.
To answer your question really quick, Manny, about the Constitution, I'm on that website. I'm not sure how legitimate it is. Okay. And I am, I think because I've identified myself as an attorney, I'm going to be very careful about what I say next. So whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I would need to read it and cross-reference it. I have never heard the Constitution interpreted that way. But for those of you, I don't want to condescend when I say this. For those of you who may or may not know, the Constitution is interpreted in several different ways, which is a part of our study. With that aside, my recommendation as a woman of color who practices the law is that when you are encountering an officer, that you choose your words and your actions very wisely. I'm not saying that's a solution or a remedy. We all know it can still go crazy. I've been there. I have been there, and I'm a woman, and I've been there. But I would recommend that you shut your mouth as much as you can. You have the right to do that. You do not have to engage in any conversation about what you did earlier today or where you're on your way to. Yep. No one really has the right to ask you that.
No, that is my actual approach. That is my actual approach.
Right. They ask you a lot of questions, and I think people out of fear believe that they have to answer. You really, you give your ID, you're not doing anything wrong, there's nothing in sight that, makes you seem criminal or would suggest that you are engaging in criminal activity. I mean, you decide how much information you choose or you choose not to give to an officer. But I would recommend that you say less than you say more. If you have the right to ask if you're being detained. If you feel like this is taking a little bit too long. And if they're detaining you, you have to know why you're being stopped and detained. And when someone tells you you're being detained, or you get the impression that the statements that you're saying are going to be used against you, you need to be read your Miranda rights. Those are some things you need to look out for. And again, say less, call your lawyer. But you do have the right to know why you're being stopped and detained. And if it goes for case law, it varies on how long you can, before you feel like you can leave. The law is a lot of bullshit and a lot of back and forth. People arguing a lot of bullshit, but do your best I think the more you let them know how much you know your rights in the situation, is the more helpful it can be. So I think when officers hear you asking, for example, why are you detaining me? Why are you stopping me? You kind of set the context. And if you're in them, I don't want to asking those questions. You always get a positive, respectful answer, but you do have the right to ask that, and you should.
Yes, and just to marry that to the manifesto, and I agree with you 100%, and I also work in law, so I'm familiar with that. This whole thing right before the call, and I was looking for information that was pertinent to this conversation. So I just ran into that, and I presented it again with that disclaimer of I just saw this thing, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. Abril Marquez. Out of DC, I know Abril. She made a comment that I found very poignant, and it can marry back to the manifesto in a way, just to give people information. She says, we distribute guidelines, instructions, and important phone numbers in printable business cards to my fellow Mexicans in case they have to interact with the police. Would something like this be helpful for the Black community? Knowledge is power. What do you guys think?
Definitely. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. Yeah. It should, behind our licenses, there should be a little card as well. The police officers have their card, their little short manifesto. We should have ours, citing those parts of the Constitution, Jay, as you spoke on, that we can rely on. And like you said, Jewel, we have to de-escalate. Mm-hmm. You know your rights. If the officer doesn't want to respond as to why you're being arrested, you already asked, and you see it's going to escalate and go in a different direction. You know what? Let that officer make his mistakes. You don't make the mistake.
Hopefully, it's not fatal, but I agree with you.
Hopefully, it's not fatal, but I think we have a better chance of it not going in that route. Then if
you have a better chance, but you need to just understand that whenever you engage with a member of law enforcement, unfortunately, it sucks that this is the case, but You need to be prepared for things to go left, even if you do everything right.
Right.
I don't want to lull people into this, this slippery slope of like good behavior gets you off. I mean, we're coming off a whole string of incidents where people were really just minding their own business. So, knowing your rights, yes, you should. Once again, knowing your rights and voicing your rights still may get you punched in the face. Um, and that's just the reality of the situation. Being a lifelong smart ass that I am, I know for a fact where I've had interactions with police officers and I've read them for filth from A to Z. And guess what? Well, it got me roughed up. Not because I was wrong, just because of the fragility and the ego behind the person doing the job at the time. And which is why I'm always mindful for people when I tell them to exercise their rights, not because they shouldn't, but because you may be caught in another catch 22. And so I say discernment is key and context counts. Read the room and know when to go and when to just exercise your right to keep your mouth shut.
And I want to just say something to some of my conservative friends who jumped in this chat. I was seeing their comments, because I try to hear all sides. Not everyone should, because there's a lot of bullshit on all sides. But I saw some comments. If you're in the South, you'll see people on their bumper stickers saying, I know my Second Amendment right. There is clear signals, okay, that these people understand their rights. We need to, as Black and brown people and as Black people from the diaspora, we need to make it clear that we know our rights and we are active with our rights. I think as something as simple as that, we can make that signal even when we're not interacting with law enforcement. I think that needs to be part of our culture. That needs to be a part of how we speak. I think it's happening. I'm going to publish some content very soon. I think today or tomorrow with the Constitution on my Instagram, so people can, just have it in a saved screenshot. Because I think in people's mind, this document is outside of the reach, but I have a concise version of it and things like that. I think it will help. However, I think we do need to understand all the points of the Constitution, and I think we need to, one last thing I think what may help is that we should have police who are from the communities, police those communities. I think there's sheriffs in a lot of towns in the country. I think it's hard from someone that's from Suffolk County, Nassau County, or Staten Island come into Washington Heights or East Flatbush or Harlem and have a good job doing that, and vice versa. Look how nuanced our conversation is about our different types of Blackness. I know, how could someone else from the outside come in and do that job, especially when they have a bias and they have racism built into them. So I think we need to have, our local officials understand that we need our own police in our neighborhoods. If the Hasidic Jews have their own police department, why can't we have our own police departments? And that's something I want to share. And that's not my fact. That's what I'm leaning towards those conversations now.
I totally agree with you. And just for the sake of time, I would like to offer you guys, up to a minute for some, parting words here before we close down this chat. We've been here for the last 2 hours. It's been engaging, and I love it. And maybe we should do it again and bring maybe some other people as well. But yeah, just give me up to 1 minute if you have any parting words, and we'll close this up, wrap it up. Jewel?
Jewel?
I think someone asked, what would I be doing instead of voting? So some of the things that I've been doing for anybody who wants to get involved, I have been participating in protest support by doing legal observation, which is just to ensure that people have the right to assemble and that officers are not infringing on that right. We can also get active on our social media. Everyone has that at their fingertips. We can also get active at home amongst our families through education and through our friends. Most of us, if not all, who are New Yorkers have some friend or family member who's in law enforcement. So, we need to be having those personal conversations as well. I also recommend that people get educated about their civil rights in the United States as it pertains to their rights in the workplace, their rights in their home, and especially their rights interfacing with the police department. And if you are talking to a cop, be mindful and shut your mouth. Don't talk to a cop and call your lawyer. That's what I would recommend. Stay Black, keep the energy going, don't give up, keep the pressure, put the pressure is working. Don't lose sight of that.
Thank you, Joe. Eric?
Sure. I want to stress the point that, these are difficult times. I think that we have to really have a clear focus or laser focus on educating our youth. There's been a lot thrown at them these last 6 months with COVID, shutdown and everything. And now this incredibly difficult situation. I think it can be a lot on a young person. I think we need to educate them, have serious conversations about what their rights are, who they are, how they're perceived, and how, more importantly, how to deal with this situation. I think they're, as a parent or as a brother, any sibling, you have a family member that's got a youngin', anybody that's in tweens, teens, early 20s right now may be struggling really, really hard during this period. And I know it's a conversation to have, but it needs to be had. So let's hold them by the hand, sit them down, and explain what's really going on and how they can help and be part of something that historically is going to be seen as a very ugly period in our history. But hopefully it'll flip the switch and turn into one of the most beautiful times in terms of how we walk out of this, also for the future.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. Jay?
I want to say that I want to just reestablish that the prefix of revolution is revolt, and before Renaissance, there's a revolution. I think we also need to not conflate that every conservative Republican value is terrible. I don't think we should be automatically assume that we're Democrat liberals. I think we need to hold both parties to the line and understand both conservative values and liberalism. I think we need to understand fiscal policy. We need to understand finance and economics. And I don't mean everyone today. I think we should just be talking about it like now. I think we need to teach people about Africanism and Pan-Africanism. I think we need to call out racism in our own languages and dialects and communities. And I also think that let's not judge tactics. This is not a trauma contest, as one of your partner, Mike, says. And this is not us to compare tactics. I think right now there's different folks for different strokes. Did I say that right? Maybe my dyslexia came out there. Yeah, but you guys got it. And just to conclude, I think this is a beautiful period of enlightenment. And like my friend Wilkie says, the phoenix always rises from the ashes.
Thank you so much, Jay. JD? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You got to unmute it.
Well, Manny, we can hear something from you, Manny.
I'm trying to do it from here. Can unmute your guest.
There we go. Hello. All right. So, this road for all who decide that they want to put hands to the plow and make things different. It's a lot, and it involves a lot of self-accountability. It involves a lot of scary moments and uncertainty, and it involves a lot of potentially life-threatening situations, depending on how hard you want to push the line towards change. It is rife with inconvenience. So if you decide that you want to do anything for yourself and others, understand that it is going to be mostly hardship most of the time. That's why Dr. Martin Luther King didn't want to be the leader, and that's also why he went through a serious depression for several years. With that being said, do it anyway, because the alternative is probably far worse. I would say continue to practice empathy as a radical weapon. I would say continue to be foolish, make mistakes, and stay enthusiastic. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, JD. Thank you all for spending this last couple of hours here having this nuanced conversation. Thank you, Jay, Joel, Eric, JD. Thank you to those watching. This has been great. I have enjoyed it. I hope we can do it again soon, and I hope that we can actually have conversations that evolve and where we can actually have some solutions to this, so we can actually celebrate. That's what I'm looking forward to. So please enjoy the rest of your day. Guys, the four of you just hang on for 1 minute there. To the audience, until next time, we do have something coming up next Sunday. JD Waterspoon and Courtney Grange are going to be hosting their first Divine Masculinity Activated live. It's going to be a series and it's going to be fantastic. I hope you are here to watch. It's Sunday at 1 o'clock. So with that, we say thank you and goodbye. Stay safe.